Hey guys, Greg Alexander again. Thanks for coming to the channel. And today I want to talk about a bait that kind of popped out, kind of quick, got a little bit of hype, and then kind of disappeared and swept under the rug. And probably the reason it was swept under the rug is people were like, I don't really want everybody knowing about this particular bait. And I've known about this bait for quite some time, and I haven't really talked about it too much. I've had a good amount of success on it. And the bait that we're talking about today is what's called poop baits or turd baits. That's what they are. And they're made by several different companies. Missile Baits makes the Bomba, Yamamoto makes the Yamatanuchi, Fish Arrow makes the heavy poop bait, and Depths makes the cover scat. So the one that I use, just because I was able to get some, is the cover scat. And so I wanted to talk today about this bait, how to fish it, when to fish it, why to fish it, and what equipment you should use to fish it with. And this is not a finesse bait. Although it's meant to be fished weightless, no added weight, just a hook. It's not a finesse bait. It's not like a wacky rig Senko or weightless Texas wacky rig Senko or any type of stick type bait that you would a lot of times throw on more finesse type rods and line setup. Like many times people throw wacky rig Senko, they're throwing it on 6 to 12 pound test line. Wacky rig with a smaller hook, or some people Texas rig them with a little bit heavier line and heavier cover. But this is a bait that's meant to be fished with bait casting tackle. It's a power finesse type technique. And this bait comes packaged like such. This cover scat basically looks like a little nothing type worm. So the equipment that you want to use for this particular bait, the equipment that I use is a regular old bait casting rod and reel setup. It's a medium heavy fast rod, which is probably the most popular style of rod for bait casting rod. And the reel can be pretty much anything. I like a faster retrieve reel because I want to be able to catch up with the fish when he's making a run or something like that, and I don't want to waste a lot of time reeling in between flip, pitches, cast, or skips. So this is what I use. And when I say medium fast, it's got a pretty limber tip but a very stiff backbone. So the line, I'm going to probably most of the time throw about 16 pound test fluorocarbon with this particular bait. I could think of some times where I might go up to 20 if I'm fishing shallow around a heavy cover and the size of the fish in the lake or reservoir river I'm fishing are considerably larger than average. But 16 is probably going to be my go-to. And now with this particular bait, they recommend like a 6/0 hook. Now, to me, that's just too big. I think it just gets in the way, sticks off too much. If you've watched some of my other videos, I got a video out there on what hooks not to use, posted right here. I think the hook is too big for the bait. I throw a 4/0 EWG hook with this particular bait. Hook myself in the ear. And how you rig this bait, there's a little divot right there. Can you see the little divot? Well, that hook's supposed to go in the head and through the little divot, and I go all the way to the bottom of the divot because I want to get a little bit more meat at the top. And then just rig it like you would any other Texas rig bait. Take it down, spin it around, measure where your hook's going, and then there's a groove on this side. See, and that's why you don't really need this giant hook, because there's a groove on this side, so that hook, if there wasn't a groove, there wouldn't be very much there to catch the hook, although there still probably would be enough in my opinion. But that groove swallows that hook and allows that hook to come out, you know, almost like that on the other side. That's why you don't need a big old 6/0 hook in there. 6/0 hook, you got to set the hook harder, it tears a bigger hole, and it tends to roll more. So I stay with about a 4 on this, and then you just rig it straight through. And then on this particular bait, the cover scat, there's a little dimple on the back there. And that's meant for you to skin hook the hook tip back into that little dimple. But these baits are pretty fragile. So throughout the day or throughout the time I'm using one particular bait, I'm just going to move that hook around to places that aren't torn. And then what I'll do when this tears on this side, because it's going to tear, this pretty fragile bait, like I said, it's going to tear, I'm just going to turn the bait around and then hook it from the other side. And I'll continue to use that bait with one side tore, the little dimple tore. I can make this bait last, you know, quite a bit longer, and it doesn't really affect anything. And when you turn it around, you know, your hook's going to kind of come up through the slot on this side. So you just kind of roll it a little bit and stick the hook back in next to the slot. So that's how you rig the bait, and that's what rod and reel you want to use and about the line size you want to use. And some of the features of this particular bait, it's 40% salt. It's extremely heavy. It's extremely dense. It has a very strong smell to it. When you open one of these bags up and smell it, I mean, it's a strong, strong smell. It's a nice, nasty smell that, you know, smells like a lot of other, you know, bait attractant type smells, but it's cooked in. So this bait being as heavy as it is, it casts a country mile. You can cast it a long, long way. And not only can you cast it a long way, you can skip it a long way also. And you don't have any bullet weights or skirts or anything in the way that are going to cause it to want to nosedive on you when you skip it. This bait, you can skip it a country mile back up in places that you can't get a lot of other baits unless you're just a real good, you know, skipper. So how do you fish this bait, and where do you fish this bait? I fish this bait kind of like you would fish a weightless Senko. Cast it out, let it go to the bottom. Now, some of the differences in this bait are when you throw this particular bait in the water, it does the rocking chair. It goes as it's sinking, and that gets smaller and smaller until it kind of stops in the middle. Kind of like if you started something swinging, it would slow each time, get less and less and less until it stops in the middle, and then this bait falls pretty much dead flat. Now you don't want to drop it on a tight line, because if you drop it on a tight line, then it's going to want to skate. And that may be some days that may be what you want to do, is to make it skate. But generally this bait's going to fall dead flat, and it's going to just have a little shimmy to it. Not as much as a Senko does, but a little shimmy to it. And this bait gets deeper faster than a lot of your other weightless baits like Senkos that you would throw on a wacky rig. It starts really slow because it's doing the rocking thing, but then it gets deeper faster. And you know, some of the people that I've listened to, some of the Elite Series pros that use this bait, they'll fish this bait in 20 foot of water. They'll get in a clear water lake where they can't get them to rack to other things, and they'll drop this bait on a hump in 20 foot of water and just wait for it to go down. And it gets down pretty quick to 20 foot. I mean, she'll drop, I'll show you how fast she'll drop once she gets going. She'll drop like that. I mean, it goes down really quick. Although, like I said, the initial drop is very slow. So if you're fishing in shallow water, you're only going to get that, and it's going to stop. If you're fishing in deeper water, they're going to see that, and then they're going to see it change to flat and dropping straight down. So you could fish this bait anywhere you would fish any type of weightless Senko, and you can also fish this bait pretty much anywhere you would fish a relatively light-weighted Texas rig bait. except this bait is not really meant to be worked along the bottom. You can certainly do that. You can certainly reel it up and let it fall again, reel it up and let it fall again. But this bait, for me, is you're throwing it at some type of underwater target or some type of target and letting it drop, and that's usually when you're going to get your bite, when that bait is dropping. It's a drop style bait. So you can flip it in trees, you can flip it around docks. Where I find it to be most effective for me, because you can catch them on a lot of different lures around docks and around trees. But for me, this bait seems to be most effective when the fish are a little bit deeper, on the edge somewhere, in a relatively not eating type mood, late winter, pre-spawn fish, where they're hanging off the edges of things, and you just flip it out on the edge and let this bait go down in front of them. The watercolor that I look for most when I would throw this particular type of bait would be clear to lightly stained. Now, you could use this bait in shallower situations where the water is dirtier, but there's probably other more durable type baits like jigs and creature baits that would be just as effective as this bait is when you're dealing with shallow situation. This bait again is meant, it's a visual appeal bait, it's a do nothing type bait, and like I said, it's for more clear to lightly stained water, a little bit deeper off, where this bait can actually showcase everything that it has. So what colors you want to throw? The same colors that work for you in other baits are going to also work for you in these style baits. I basically would stay with 3 colors. I'm going to throw some type of black or black and red or black and blue, if you can get black and blue in your particular brand. Some type of shaddy or light color, if you're dealing with a lot of shad around or a lot of bait fish in the area, or just stick with your regular old green pumpkin. Now this particular bait comes in 3 sizes, 2.5 inches, 3.5 inches, and 4 inches. I just don't see the need to have all 3 sizes of baits, unless of course the body of water that you fish is just loaded with little fish that won't respond to the 3.5, or the body of water that you fish is got a lot of big fish, and if you don't catch big fish you're going to lose. So then you might just stick with the 4-inch bait. But that 3.5-inch bait is the perfect size for almost all bass. They love that size. That between 3 and 4 inches is the most preferred size for a bass to want to eat most days. So it appeals to small fish, medium-sized fish, and large fish. So take this bait out late winter, early spring. Start with it then. It'll work throughout the whole year. Some baits work better in colder water, some baits work better in warmer water, but it will work throughout the year. Add it to your arsenal and you will catch more fish. Again, thanks for watching and have a blessed day.